Today's guest is Aline Gómez-Acebo Finat.
My first question is, why are you always so focused on growth? Is growth the answer? I think learning every day is super important.
Keep reading, keep learning.
Well, being hopeful these days is not an easy task, definitely. But companies have to evolve. We have to evolve, right? And the planet has to evolve. So a little bit like Federer would say, just think of the point that you're playing right now. Maybe you don't have to be an entrepreneur, or maybe you can work in a startup first and see how that is.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Venture Ahead, the only podcast at IE that walks you through the entrepreneurship journey. On each episode, we bring you real-world advice from people who are actually living it, from CEOs to entrepreneurs who are shaping the industry today. Today's guest is Aline Gómez-Acebo Finat, who is a pioneer and a professor of sustainability and of health tech. As always, we're starting with a question that we ask all of our guests. What is one daily task that you never skip?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. I think one daily task I never would skip, apart from my coffee, would be feeling very grateful in the mornings when I put my windows up and I see the sun or the clouds and say, wow, how lucky am I?
No, I agree. I think I do something similar. I think feeling grateful is one of the best things to start your day and to really ground yourself for what's coming next. But I wanted to talk a bit more about you and your journey. So you're someone that's an investor, pioneer on healthcare and sustainability. So you spend, I'm assuming, a lot of time thinking about the future. What do you do to stop yourself from wishful thinking, and how do you track real progress over time?
Well, being hopeful these days is not an easy task, definitely, because we all have terrible news all over and it just brings us down. But I really think, and if you look, I'm a lover of history, and if you look back and read around history, everything happens and it's a cycle that continues repeating. So we have it in sustainability, we have it in progress. And I do believe that we're now in not a very beautiful moment of history, but I do believe that having learned about the past allows us to see that there is a bright future ahead. Yeah. So that is, I guess, how I keep myself hopeful. I also celebrate a lot the little wins, even if they're minimum, and try not to dwell too much in the bad moments of the days. So a little bit like Federer would say, just think of the point that you're playing right now. That would be another way that I definitely agree with him.
No, great answer and great advice. And I also wanted to ask you a bit about Eniax. So we have seen that patients and healthcare providers are benefiting from this. So how would you say that these digital solutions are helping clients, and how do you stay optimistic about this market?
Well, I studied psychology, which I know has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now, although we're talking about artificial brains, but anyways. And psychology brings a very perspective, very human-centered perspective, but it is also within the healthcare scope, right? So I've always been very much driven to healthcare. I've been working many years in healthcare as well, and I used to be in operation. I was a COO, so I was very much data-driven and was very much focused on things working, efficiency and everything. But then I realized that efficiency and numbers are nothing without humans, right? Because humans are the ones that create the service, are the ones that receive the service, they're the ones that, ask for the service, they're the ones that sell it. And so having that human focus is very important. So when I think about Eniax, and Eniax, what it does basically is it communicates and it converses with patients, with providers, and helps them out. I realized that in healthcare, we had lost that human perspective. So you would go to the emergency room and you would be treated like a number, right? So we are trying to bring that humanity back into healthcare, doing what probably is very much difficult to be done with people because of the demand.
Yes.
And not only does it bring impact within numbers and efficiency, which it does, of course, because otherwise, nobody would buy us. But what I think we're really doing is impact in people every day, which is what actually keeps me hopeful, I guess, and what makes our clients stay with us for very long. So we've had long time value that I think hasn't been seen in the industry.
Yes, and what you're mentioning, especially with psychology, I think it's a very meaningful approach, but also difficult. So I kind of wanted to ask you, you've brought AI into this field that's not very easy to do. So what are some of the hurdles that you've been through and how did you overcome them?
Well, there's been a lot of hurdles, of course, because when you enter in a space as is healthcare, which is it's a space that is very much secured and people don't want to share data, and it's very sensible. So especially in Europe, we've got all this regulation. So that is definitely one of the hurdles. So when we go to a new potential client, they will be like, well, what happens with data privacy? And that is definitely one. There's another one, which is when you've been doing things the same way for many years and someone comes and tells you, hey, you could do so much better if you do it this way. They're like, yeah, but I don't want to change the way I work, right? So, if I manage my agendas this way, I just don't. So that is another hurdle. So, change management. And I would say that, I don't know why, but when people think that a robot is texting you via WhatsApp, for example, there can be so many problems. But when a robot is calling you, or when an agent that doesn't know anything about you, a person is calling you, nothing is going to happen. But in fact, truth is that humans make pretty much more mistakes than machines, because machines only know what you've taught them, right? So, but that would be another hurdle. So even in the new proposal of the DIS regulation of the European Union, they were very much worried of, hey, we can only do in digital what can be done in person. And I'm like, well, then maybe we can only do in person what can also be done in digital, right? Why are we only looking at one space, right? So I think it's more the big barrier here is the mindset, as always, when you're trying to disrupt an industry. But of course, if we continue doing the things the same way, we're not gonna take the next step. And once you take the next step, the universe gets so much bigger, right? If we only look at ourselves as the Earth, we're big. But if we look at ourselves from the solar system, then we're huge. And if we go further away, it's going to be even more. So yes, there's a lot of barriers, but especially I think we are our own worst barrier.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I wanted to get your advice and also get kind of your perspective. You're, like I mentioned, a multifaceted individual. So regarding your work in sustainability, when you meet a company for the first time, what is the first sustainability question that you ask them?
Okay, so sustainability has been very much mistreated these days. I think. We're not in a very popular. We were popular a few months ago, but not anymore. Sustainability is about making things last, right? So it has been focused from the environment perspective. We want this planet to keep on being as it is, or even better. But it doesn't only rely on the planet; it relies also on the people. We want people to keep being healthy, maintain their bodies well. It also applies to companies. We want companies to, last longer, but companies have to evolve. We have to evolve, right? And the planet has to evolve. So when we go into sustainability, the first problem we have is that people don't really understand the term sustainability. My first question is, why are you always so focused on growth? Is growth the answer? And if we think about it, it has been. But who has actually pushed us to scale? Everyone is talking about scalability. Is scalability always so important? Or if we think about, great companies that have lasted really long, were they really scalable? And so that is one of the things. I think sustainability is also trying to slow us down and make us think whether or not we really have to go that much wide. And that's why Eniax is a company that has never raised money. It has always bootstrapped, and it has always kept its clients because we knew that our clients were the most important thing, right? So why invest in, getting more users or more clients if you can't really keep your promises or your commitments with the clients that you have? And that's why burn rate is a term that we use now very much.
Of course.
But should we really use it or not?
No, and I think that's a great point into like the next question I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned, yes, everybody, especially sometimes with startups, they focus so much on scalability. So what advice would you give to startups if they want to integrate sustainability? I know it's like a big term, but from day one.
Well, I mean, I think I'm not a person to give advice to anyone, but I can definitely talk around my path and how we've worked into sustainability. And I mean, I've done it in the big corporation as well as in the small one. And one of the things around sustainability is, if you think of your body, how do you keep your body healthy, right? So you would try to lose fat. You would try to keep healthy habits.
Yeah.
You would try to have a community that supports you. You would try to, maintain your brain, one step ahead. And if we think in the company, this can also apply as a body, right? So, inefficiencies are not going to take you far away. Definitely not thinking about the way you do stuff or what people actually need or demand, and not having a group of, stakeholders, employees that actually support you, believe in you, and are going to be there with you, because it's just so exhausting having to hire new people just because you can't keep the people you hired in the beginning.
No, I think that's a great point. And I wanted to kind of segue into something you've said before, that perfectionism can sometimes kill talent. So what advice would you give entrepreneurs who feel that they need to have everything figured out or be 100% ready in order to start?
That's funny, because I was just talking a few days ago with a friend of mine who has this amazing idea. And I'm not going to pitch it because I would spoil it, but she's an amazing, very well prepared person. Of course, she's a woman, and as you know, we are said to have this imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But she's also very perfectionist, and she's got I think 600 pages written of her project. And I've been for months saying, why don't you just start? You're going to iterate, because whatever you think is not going to. But she just needs to feel in control. And to be honest, you're never going to be truly in control. It's very difficult. We're not in control of our lives. We don't know. I mean, I just had a flight this morning. I didn't know it was going to be delayed for 3 hours. Yes. I had to switch 3 meetings, whatever, life happens. If you don't jump in it, then you're never going to want to control it, because it's not going to happen. So I think, of course, when there's also this thing about wanting to be an entrepreneur. Do you really want to be why do you want to be an entrepreneur? It's why do you want to scale? So you really have to think on the, in the initial drive, because that's what's going to push you all this time, right? So if there's this drive because you've got a passion, because you've seen something, because you're very secure, then go for it. And you're never going to control it. And it might get out of your hands because you did a bad deal with whatever. But then first think about it, because maybe you don't have to be an entrepreneur, or maybe you can work in a startup first and see how that is, and then you can learn from that. So that definitely, being perfectly prepared, yes, no, but none of us are. And then relying a lot. We've got this micromanagement obsession, which is that's what kills most companies, because employees feel that they're not doing anything of value, and micromanagers are like, oh my God, I'm overworked, because they don't let go, right? So if we happen to really, so like you do with your kids, if you have kids, you'll know that you have to let them fall, at least in the beginning, and then they'll learn, right? It's going to be painful. They're going to come crying with blood and everything, but next time they're going to be a little bit more cautious, and then you're not going to need to be on top of them all the time, and that's the way to let them grow.
Yeah, no, I think that's a super great advice. And I think developing your self-confidence is really hard. But like you said, you're never going to be 100% in control. You're never going to have everything figured out. So you might as well start now and learn how to do that. But I guess something else you've said is that the future is for those who will continue learning. So is there something that you are currently learning, and what steps are you taking in order to do this?
I think learning every day is super important. And we need to learn not only from one perspective. So one of the learnings you can do is reading. I mean, I read as much as I can because I think, when you read something, it comes within you much more than when you listen to it.
Yes.
But then we've got a lot of podcasts like this one where you can learn a lot. And that's something I use a lot when I travel in the car or whatever, that you can't be reading, and it helps a lot. But then you also need some professional structuring, because of course you can try and learn everything by reading books, but having people actually, digest it for you or help you see a new point of view or just like push you forward is super different. So institutions that actually help in that sense are super important. I think I have already like 6-7 degrees, and I'm now going to pursue my 7th this summer. So I'm an example of, really thinking that learning is amazing. And I mean, we've got great institutions around that can help us here. So really, and I can see it a lot when I work with people, clients, peers, those that have been static in their development. You can see it so much. It's amazing, but you can really sense it. They just get lost, they don't understand some terms. And if you want to be in the competitive edge, you really need to push it. Yeah.
To push it, keep reading, keep learning. And you mentioned like 7 degrees, right? So going back to the degree that you got at IE when you entered the entrepreneurial world, what advice would you give to your younger self back then?
Well, that was an amazing opportunity my company gave me, and I'm super grateful because I was working back then. This was an executive MBA. And I realized, I was doing certain stuff that, I was in that moment when you were in the meeting and you're too shy to ask, what does this mean?
Yes.
But you actually need to know about it. So IE gave me that opportunity to really understand, but it also opened a lot of new channels for me. And one of them is the one I am now. So it was really, and it wasn't only because of the networking, but also because you saw so many other stories around you from your peers that would just, motivate you so much. What made me proud? There's so many things that didn't make me proud, regarding how I handled my time and everything. But definitely one of the things that made me proud was the fact that I really wanted to learn. So I really was in class, and I really was, paying attention, and I really was taking as much as I could of what class time. What I would tell myself if I went back is also use all the things that IE gives you that I didn't, because I had small kids and I had, my work and everything. I was just like, it was too much. And now I'm like, every time I teach at IE, I'm like, you have to use it all. There's so many amazing tools that you're not using. And people that have taken that advice and have brought me back, and wow, thank you, because it changed my career. So that would be one thing I would do again in a different way.
Oh, perfect. And I think for this segment, this wraps up our question segment. And thank you so much, because I think for me, doing the international MBA, being a woman who wants to go into the entrepreneurial world, it's very helpful to hear your advice, and I can assume for our listeners as well. And I wanted to introduce this other segment that's called the Pitch Doctor. So essentially, it's this rapid fire segment where we test drive the startup ideas, and we get advice and feedback from entrepreneurs like yourself. So today, it's called Green Screen. It's this virtual background that checks both your vitals and your carbon footprint. So before you join a video call, it gives you a wellness nudge. Like, okay, it's time to hydrate, or a sustainability boost, like maybe skip the AC, go for a walk, open a window. So it's kind of like part wellness coach, but also like eco conscious. So what do you think about this idea? Do you think maybe it's a bit too much, or it's just in time?
Is it's an app, or it's an app that every time you open it?
It's like an app that merges like this wellness aspect of helping you stay fit, stay hydrated, eat better, but also be more conscious of the environment. Like I said, maybe don't turn on the AC, maybe make sure to turn off all the lights when you leave your house, save more water. So what do you think of this idea?
Just one other question. Is it a proactive thing, or you have to go in it so that it gives you this advice?
No, it's kind of like it gives you apps.
Okay.
It gives you notifications, sorry.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what the business model is, but what I do know is that we tend to forget important stuff for us and for the planet. So having reminders of these things. So I'm the first one that, of course, I have to, live the sustainable way, although some travels do not help me there. But it is true that for now, both healthcare and sustainability have been very much reactive, right?
Yes,
so we would go to the doctor when we were feeling bad, no? And now this is changing, of course. But having something that actually comes up to you and tells you these things, and just as a reminder,
yes,
I think it could be very useful. We would always have to look at the content, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But definitely it's something that I had never thought about and makes sense as people that really want to, that are conscious, I would say, so for conscious people. Depending on how much the price is, prices are very disruptor. But yeah, interesting.
No, and I agree with you. I think, like you said, it's very reactive. And a lot of the times we want to do it, but we don't have the time maybe to think about it in this busy world. So having something on our phones that just constantly tells us, and we always check our phones, I think would be a good thing to implement. I wanted to tell you thank you for coming today. And that officially wraps our episode of Venture Ahead. So if you are a builder or somebody who's interested in entrepreneurship, please follow us. We'll be coming up with more interesting episodes. Thank you.